Hey guys, Matt here. Before we begin this episode of Tower Junkies, I just want to mention that we are currently running a contest where you can win a free Tower Junkies t-shirt. The contest runs from now until January 1st, 2018, and if you want to enter, all you have to do is leave a rating and a review of the podcast on iTunes or Stitcher, take a screenshot of the review, and email it to matt@obsessiveviewer.com with the subject line Tower Junkies t-shirt contest. On January 1st, I'll randomly select a winner from the entries, and we'll get a free t-shirt mailed to them. We'll be accepting entries until December 31st at midnight, so make sure you get the email in before then. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy this week's episode of Tower Junkies.
You're clean, aren't you? Except for your tower. You're a tower junkie, Roland.
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast devoted to Stephen King and his magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. We discuss the themes, characters, and mythology of the series in Palaver episodes, and review the books and comic series in Kef episodes. We also discuss King novels related to the Dark Tower, non-Tower King novels, TV and film adaptations of King's work, and the latest news about potential Dark Tower-related adaptations. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com, and follow us on every level of social media at TowerJunkiesPod. And you can also find more of our podcast content at obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. I am your host, Matt Hurt, and with me today is Tiny.
Hello.
Hi, Tiny. How's it going?
It's going really well.
Great. Do you want to tell people what we're going to be doing on the podcast today?
Absolutely. We are going to be talking about the film adaptation of The Dead Zone.
Yes. I am excited to talk to you about that because I just finished watching it today for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. So very excited to talk to you about that. But first, as we normally do, we're going to kind of check in with each other and see where we're at in terms of King things in our life. So do you want to kick us off with your King check-in?
Absolutely. Last time I was making progress in the audiobook of Sleeping Beauties, the new one from Stephen King and his son, Owen King.
Yep. I
thought it might have been his nephew.
No, son.
Yep. Or his grandfather. Or his adopted child. I don't know. No, I knew it was his son. From Stephen King and Owen King. And I have finished it. I finished it last week.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think we're going to review it on the podcast here. So
yes,
I will withhold any thoughts until then.
Nice. I am about halfway through it at this point. I am we're recording this the day before Thanksgiving, so I'm planning on, really, if not finishing it, then at least making a very, very big dent in it on my 4 days off.
Okay.
So we'll be reviewing that soon.
Are you audiobooking it or reading it?
Audiobooking it.
Okay.
Yep. And then it's funny because I keep seeing the hardcover at the store and everything, and I'm like, I just want it for my collection.
Yeah.
I just want a physical copy.
Right. I know how that is.
Yeah, so I'll probably break down and buy it when it's on paperback, just for the aesthetic of having it on the shelf.
Continuity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, for the collection.
Yep.
But my check-in for this episode is something I didn't really plan. But so, okay, I posted this on Instagram. Again, you can find us at Tower Junkies Pod on Instagram. Actually, two things. One is we have a new logo, which I'm super excited about. It's really cool. So you can see that on all of our social media and everything, but we also have it in t-shirt form on tpublic.com. And also, as you heard at the top of this episode, and as you will be hearing throughout the rest of this year, we are running a promotion. Tiny, I don't know if I talked to you about this.
I don't think you did.
No.
I'm out of the loop.
Yeah, totally.
People are going to be asking me about it, and I don't even know.
I know, right?
My Twitter's blowing up right now.
Is it, though?
No.
Okay. So the promotion is from now until December 31st. All you got to do is rate and review us on iTunes, take a screenshot of that review, send it to me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com, and just put the subject line Tower Junkies t-shirt contest, and then January 1st I will pick one of the entries, and they will get a free t-shirt.
Nice.
So go ahead and do that. I'm very excited because the shirt looks pretty killer. The design looks pretty killer. I haven't actually gotten my shirt in the mail yet, but it does look good in the previews and everything.
Nice. TeePublic is awesome.
It very much is. Oh yeah. So go check that out and enter the contest. But my check-in is, you may have seen this on the Instagram, but I kind of bought The Dark Tower on Blu-ray, and I haven't opened it up yet, or I haven't put in the disc, or I haven't checked anything out of it. But the reason that I bought it, even though you can hear us pretty much tear it to shreds as a movie, in basically the kickoff episode of this podcast, the first official episode of the podcast, I bought it specifically for you guys because I think that if all goes as planned, our kind of Christmas gift to the listeners will be a commentary track for the Dark Tower movie, so that you guys can watch it and listen to us talk about it for 95 minutes.
Yeah, if you can stomach it.
Yep. So we will be there with you when you watch it. So be looking forward to that next month for Christmas. And I think that's all I got for King check-ins. I did record the Christine book review, so nice. That'll be coming up soon. And then I promise we will be getting back into the Dark Tower, because we kind of haven't talked about the Dark Tower that much. But next week we have a special episode with me and our friend Tony Troxel that's all about the Gunslinger. So be looking forward to that. So
sweet.
Yep. So Tiny, The Dead Zone, 1983, David Cronenberg.
Yes.
Christopher Walken, Martin Sheen, Tom Skerritt.
Yes.
And some other people. So what's your history with this adaptation? We talked previously about how the Dead Zone novel was one of your favorite King novels. And how does the Dead Zone movie fit into your history with Stephen King and as a human being? Also, just to preface, we're going to be doing a non-spoiler section and spoiler section. You will be warned when we go into spoilers. So Tiny, the Dead Zone.
My relationship with this adaptation is very loose. I have seen it before. Honestly, I don't remember when, because I read the book when I was like 13. Well, no. That's incorrect. I'm thinking of a different book, but I think. Yeah, I remember it now. So I read the book when I was like in my early 20s, like 22. That's when we were working security and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went and found like a download of the movie and watched it.
Wait, that's when you read the book?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, gosh, I forgot about that. I was thinking it was one of the books that I read back in like the fated summer of 1999 before 8th grade. Which I will reference many times on this podcast. But it wasn't. I read the book in my early 20s or so, and then I was like, well, there's an adaptation, and I like movies. And so I downloaded and watched it, and I really didn't remember it all that well. I remember the first time I watched it, I was not a fan of the movie at all. I thought it was pretty bad. But in fairness to the movie, I had just read the book, so it's like,
yeah.
I mean, if you watch an adaptation of a book that you just read, you're almost always guaranteed to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So I'll add that caveat in there. So yeah, that's when I watched the movie for the first time. Yeah.
Interesting. I had never seen the movie, and of course, as we mentioned in last episode, this was my first time reading the novel. So going into this movie, I was kind of not sure what exactly to expect. I knew that you said that it wasn't that good, and I was coming off of listening to it on Audible and just falling in love with James Franco's performance narrating it. So I think that also put the movie at a slight disadvantage with me, because I was so on board with Franco's narration that I felt like any portrayal of Johnny Smith would be subpar to me, because in my head it's James Franco. And then knowing that, kind of finding out kind of late in the game that Cronenberg had piqued my interest a little bit, because it's a movie that I didn't really think had like a bigger name director. I kind of thought that it was just an adaptation from someone who never really had much pull in Hollywood. So
right.
I was kind of looking forward to seeing what he did with the material, and and then I watched it today, and we'll talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the being disappointed just from reading the book and everything. It's funny because that's like my go-to strategy with any adaptation is I like to read the book first and then
me too,
and then watch it. Yeah, like there are people that love watching the movie at first and then going back and reading the book, but I just my brain isn't wired for that.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So you just recently watched it again. What did you think of it this time? Did your opinion of it improve, or how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, my opinion improved a little bit. I don't think in the past I gave enough credit to Christopher Walken. Mm-hmm. I think he gave a really good performance despite the weak script and the kind of lackluster effort, I would say, by David Cronenberg. Mm-hmm. I think he did he gave a pretty good performance. And I feel like it was a fairly tight adaptation. It was pretty faithful to the source. Not that they have to be, but I think that's an asset to this story, is to stick to the book pretty closely. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a good move, and I give it credit for that. But I feel like I wish I could really articulate what it is I don't like about the adaptation. I think it's just the fact that it feels just kind of thrown together, mm-hmm. Especially in comparison with some other King adaptations from the 80s, right around this time. You know, it feels like they just kind of threw the movie out there. Like, okay, these are the major elements of the story. Let's put these in there. We'll have Christopher Walken play the lead guy. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And it just seems very very vanilla to me. It just doesn't seem like it has a lot of heart, and that it really hit the. It didn't seem like it hit the notes of the book that spoke to me, and that made the book good. I think it feels like I feel like it missed that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think I was a little more engaged with the movie than you were, to be honest. Okay. Like, I kind of, I didn't come away from it hating it at all. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm actually a little bit far removed from actually reading the book. So in the interim between reading the book and watching the movie, I've read Christine, and I've gone through half of Sleeping Beauties, and read some Philip K. Dick also. So it's kind of a little bit far from my mind. But I did like the way that it's, like, I think you said it's the tightness of the script. It's mm-hmm. I liked the way that the movie was paced. Like, it kind of, okay. If you listen to our book review of it, of The Dead Zone, I was kind of a little disconnected with the narrative structure and the kind of, there's a few different distinct acts that has Johnny Smith doing specific things in each act that is completely different from each other, almost completely different from the other two. So it's kind of jarring to have, like, almost a new cast of characters in one section of the book than what's previous. And mm-hmm. That was kind of problematic to me when reading it. But this movie kind of flowed pretty effortlessly throughout the big events of the story. And it was surprisingly more close to the book than I expected it to be, which I'm trying to... I know that when you have an adaptation, there's a lot of pressure on, or there's a lot of pressure on the filmmakers to adapt it as close to the book as possible. And mm-hmm. I'm starting to kind of turn around to that, because, like, I'm one of those people that in the past would be like, oh, I can't believe they cut this out or they did this. But I'm coming around to it where it's more like, well, it's a completely different medium. It's someone else's interpretation of the work. So yes, there are going to be changes, and some of those changes could be completely drastic and different. But as long as it captures what made the book special, it's fine by me. So, having said that, they did implement some stuff in the movie that I was pretty surprised that they actually went with. They changed some things around. They made, we'll talk about the ending and spoilers, but they changed some things around that made it a little tighter and made the interactions a little more I almost want to say incestuous, but made the interactions more connected, like the different characters more connected throughout the entirety of the story, rather than having characters come in and then new characters come in and then new characters come in later.
Yeah.
So I appreciated it for that. There were some things that were obviously missing for runtime sake and everything that didn't really need to be included anyway. I'm thinking in terms of like it's hinted at in the movie, but it's explored a lot fuller in the book, obviously. But Johnny's mother's like religious fanaticism, it's like hinted at in the movie, but then it just kind of drops, and then it isn't anything spoken of, which I felt was kind of a shame because that informed Herb's character so much, and I felt like as a result of it being nixed from the movie, a lot of his characterization kind of fell by the wayside as well.
Right.
And so he became much more of a support, like not very prominent character than he was in the book, which was a shame because I really love that character. But as far as performances and everything, I liked Christopher Walken more than I expected to, but I still felt like he was just kind of, not so much that he was bland. Like he did a pretty good job, but I feel like it didn't really capture what made Johnny Smith so appealing to me in the books. Like we talked at length about how Johnny Smith was a very charismatic and friendly guy who got along with everyone, and Christopher Walken is more Christopher Walken in his performance, and he doesn't capture that pleasantness that Johnny Smith inhabits in the book. So that was kind of a shame, but I feel like he did a fine job.
The use of the word charisma, your use of the word charisma is right. I think that was missing quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I still appreciated his performance quite a bit.
Yeah. He wasn't over the top or anything. And there were some elements of the movie that they included some stuff here and there that I kind of appreciated, like the inclusion of the Raven, Edgar Allan Poe, and then how that kind of comes back to play later in the movie. I appreciated that quite a bit. I thought that was a good way to kind of string together the characterization of Johnny Smith. And then Martin Sheen, I thought he did fine. I thought he did okay. Just he's not in the movie enough. As a kind of big bad of the movie, it's, I really wish that it would have been like the book, where it's set up from the beginning that he exists and that he is someone that their paths are going to cross. But instead we don't get a single shot of him until about an hour and probably 10 minutes into the movie, and it's an hour and 43 minutes.
Exactly.
So how'd you feel about Martin Sheen?
I liked him too. He was over the top, but he's supposed to be, because the character Greg Stilson is almost a caricature. He's a demagogue politician, so it kind of makes sense that he's a little over the top, and he feels a little ostentatious and wild. So I think that was what the performance was supposed to be. And so I think he did a pretty good job. I love Martin Sheen. West Wing is one of the greatest shows ever, and I think Jed Bartlett is my favorite fictional president. So Martin Sheen will always hold a special place in my movie heart. I think we did a fictional presidents episode of Obsessive Viewer, but then that recording was damaged, so we never posted it. Oh man, that's a shame. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and we put a lot of work into that.
Yeah, we did. Man.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that sucks. But I like to imagine that there's like the idea of like fake trilogies. Like, okay, The Dead Zone, Greg Stilson is actually his character from American President, who he's in the administration, right? And then he's eventually the end of it is him becoming president and Jed Bartlett.
Nice.
So it doesn't fit well at all, but
no, it doesn't. But
but I liked his actual performance. He is a little more. He's a little more gangsterish than he is like crazy grab him by the pussy guy. Which it's kind of funny because it feels like I have no way to corroborate this, or like this is all conjecture on my part, but it kind of feels like they read Greg Stillson in the book and was like, let's tone him down a little bit. He's a little too crazy.
It's a bit much.
He wouldn't be believable at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we'll save that for spoilers. What did you think of the way that his power was represented and like the flashes, and how he's kind of, the way it's depicted is that he kind of becomes part of the scene, if you will.
I thought that was a good choice. I felt like that was a good visual choice. Cause it's silly to represent, visions of, or it's difficult to represent a vision that someone's having, or it's very easy to kind of cheese it up.
Yeah.
But I think they took the difficult route, especially with, one of the early ones, he's having a vision of a fire that's taking place, and they insert him, Christopher Walken, into the flaming home, the house on fire, and there's a murder he's trying to solve, and he's actually present during the murder. Like I thought that was like that's the hard way to do it. That's a hard way to film that scene, and they went the hard route, and I respect them for that. And I think it was pretty successful.
Yeah.
I think it turned out pretty good, and I think this is a movie that I would like to see it remade and see what somebody could do with it. And I think modern filming techniques could help it out quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to take anything away from what they did with this movie,
right?
With practical effects and everything. I enjoyed that part quite a bit.
Yeah, and we'll go into spoilers here in a moment. But did you ever watch the USA show?
No, I think the USA show was almost like kind of Dead Zone in name only. Yeah,
that's what I kind of thought.
So I had kind of forgotten that David Cronenberg directed this. You mentioned that at the top of the episode. I'm really hit or miss on David Cronenberg. I really like some of his movies. I think A History of Violence is a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
I like Eastern Promises quite a bit. But in the 80s, he was weird.
Yeah.
Like Videodrome, and I think Existence is 80s. Oh, that's 1999.
Yeah.
But he had some weird crap in the 80s, and it's like he was dropping acid and going and making a movie. Videodrome is a weird movie. I kind of like it.
I've never seen it, but I've heard.
Weird as crap. Yeah. So, I mean, he's up or down, and he's had some really crappy movies, but he's a really pretty bold director. Like, he takes a lot of risks, I think. I think he does weird, like Videodrome. There's a lot of people who like it, like, what did I just watch? That's a weird movie. That was way over my head. I didn't like it. But then there's some people who think it's a really great movie, and it's like that. It kind of like messed with my head in a good way, and made me think I haven't seen a movie like that before. But it's funny because I don't get any Cronenbergisms really from this. Maybe a couple times. I think in particular the scene where he's envisioning the house on fire, and he's literally laying in a bed that's on fire. That was Cronenbergish a little bit, and I like that part. But other than that, it just doesn't feel like a David Cronenberg movie to me. I feel like he was maybe hamstrung by the fact that it's an adaptation, and the fact that it was, the studio's involved, and like, no, we want you to do this in this part, and we want you to do that, and stick to the script, and yada, 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 and so forth and so on. And I feel like he was kind of hamstrung a little bit as a creative director.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. I don't know if that was the case, but he did seem very, the movie seemed very kind of neutered a little bit, because Cronenberg is pretty known for being out there, and he's like the body horror guy. Like, he did The Fly.
The Fly is a great movie. I love The Fly.
I'm terrified to see it.
Oh, really?
I just think it feels like it would gross me out too much.
It's gross, but man, it's like I like that movie a lot. And Jeff Goldblum is just he's Goldblum's. He's Jeff Goldblum is being Jeff Goldblum. It's awesome. I like that movie a lot. And this was not The Fly. Definitely not.
And like there were moments in the movie where I was kind of expecting it to go like body horror kind of creepy kind of way, but it didn't deliver on that, which I'm kind of relieved by. But there's a little bit of it which we'll talk about in spoilers, but like it's more just aftermath kind of thing. It's not. It seemed like everything was. The moment where he gets, it feels like there are moments where he is about to go full Cronenberg and then just reels it back and just doesn't. So he's kind of a tease.
He handles violent action scenes so well. Like Eastern Promises, there's a scene where a character is, somebody tried to assassinate a character. It's two guys on one and it's like a knife fight and it's brutal as hell and like the sound and the camera is so immersive, and there's also some scenes in A History of Violence that are just jump out at you, and he does such a great job with it, but I didn't get any of that in this movie, except for that one part. I don't know. I kind of expected a little bit more, especially given that this is early on in his career, but this is actually the same year the Videodrome came out, so he knew what he was doing. I think he had his style and he had his signature. He had himself figured out as a filmmaker. So I'm not sure. I'm just not sure what the element was that or why it ended up that way. Yeah,
and have you ever seen Scanners?
I haven't, but I've heard it's one of his better ones.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, and I don't know if that's more like creepy, like body horror kind of thing. But I mean, this movie was maybe not between, but in the set, like this was after Scanners and either right before or immediately after Videodrome, and then right before The Fly. Like you would think that like this you would think would fit more into that. Like he would include more of that and more of his style in that. But like you said, he could have been kind of hamstrung by the studio or what have you. Right. Yeah, is there anything else that we should discuss in non-spoilers, or should we dive into spoilers?
I think we can go to spoilers.
Okay. Well, we are going to be spoiling The Dead Zone, and also we're going to be spoiling the movie The Dead Zone as well as the novel. So be warned. We're going to play a little bit of music here, and then we'll go right into spoilers. Okay, we are spoilers on for The Dead Zone, David Cronenberg's The Dead Zone. So the first thing I want to bring up, Tiny, is the Castle Rock killer. And in the movie, he's called the Castle Rock killer. He's not the strangler. But that whole, we were just talking about the Cronenbergisms of it and the kind of lacking of his style. And that's the one scene where I was like kind of on the edge of my seat thinking like, he's about to go full Cronenberg. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to be very, very creepy. And you even get like kind of the hint of that with Frank Dodd taking the scissors, and he's like, you get like just to it, and then it cuts away, and you don't even really get like. I would have thought that he would have just gone full on with that and creeped us out and everything. So it makes me wonder if there's like an alternate cut or if there's something that's cut out from it. But,
I was looking at the trivia, and it seems like they did film it, but they didn't want to put it in the movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. Huh. This was 83, so this is before PG-13. So, there's back I think it was 87 is when that started, but
that sounds right.
Or 86 maybe, but pre-86 or 87, the editing process is kind of interesting to look at for certain movies because they were just like, well, we either need to be super clean to get that PG or let's just go all out with the F-bombs and the gore and the nudity and stuff just so because like, hey, we're going to get her an R rating no matter what. So, so I don't know what the intention, I don't even remember what this was rated.
Oh, I don't remember either. I would think R, but...
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
What does it say here? It's R. It's rated R.
Oh, rated R. Okay.
Yeah. So it's weird that it was so subdued.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, I just noticed the quotes on the scene where he's like, the ice is gonna break. Like that. I kind of cringed a little bit at that, but yeah.
I kind of appreciated that scene a little bit. I mean, the part where he slams his cane into the table and he's just like, it's a bit dramatic, unrealistically dramatic maybe, but again, I think Christopher Walken handled that fairly well. It could have been super campy. It could have been, "You're tearing me apart, Lisa." It could have been like that. Which I haven't even seen that movie. But
oh God, it's an experience.
Yeah, I need to.
You need to see it before
The Disaster Artist. I'm really excited for that movie.
Me too. Me too.
But odd choices given the R rating. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's very, very bizarre, but it didn't really take too much away from the experience for me because, I didn't need to see Frank Dodd impale himself with scissors or anything. I do prefer the way that that's handled in the book, but I mean, we're getting into kind of nitpicking territory with that.
Yeah.
One thing though that I want to say. Or kind of that leads me into nitpicking the differences between the book and the movie. The way that Sarah and her husband and their baby are included in the last in the kind of climax of the movie, where it's that her son is the child that Greg Stilson holds up. I thought, I don't know. The more I've thought about it, it's just like I feel like it was a lot better in the book where they weren't anywhere near that, and it's all about Johnny.
Right.
Like it felt contrived to have his big moral point, the big thing where he's about to do something that's unforgivable for the sake of, the world essentially. But the stumbling block he has isn't his morality. It's the fact that the woman he loves has her child in danger. Like that felt like it was just contrived and took away from his motivation or his big moment as a character.
I agree. And I think maybe that was an attempt to avoid doing a voiceover with letters like in the book. Because in the letter, that's how the book ends, is that, it's a list of all the letters that he wrote to all his loved ones. And I love that ending in the book.
Me too.
But that's difficult to achieve with a film and without a voiceover, and I'm typically not a fan of voiceovers. They work sometimes.
Right.
And so I don't know if that was why they did that, but I agree. I think it was an ill-advised choice. And it also downplayed the whole movie, but that scene in particular downplayed the physical effect of his powers on his body.
Yes.
Which was emphasized a lot in the book and was kind of pretty visceral in the book. When you read it, you feel like you're getting a headache.
Yeah, like
you know what I mean? Yeah.
The moment where he's going to assassinate Greg Stilson is he's damn near on death's door.
Right.
And I felt like that just wasn't communicated in the movie hardly at all.
I think in the book that helps motivate him to do what he does.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I feel like that's one thing that I think was missing from the movie is that in the book, he wrestles so much with what he needs, what he should do with these powers and what length should he take it to. And, in the book, the part where he becomes a tutor for Chuck or Charlie, I
think it was Chuck.
Chuck. And, there's all the kids die in the restaurant that's struck by lightning.
Yeah.
That is a huge catalyst for him. And I feel like they tried to go that route with the hockey team. Yeah. But it just didn't have the same weight. And the character didn't externalize that turmoil at all.
Right. And it also
was missing.
Yeah. The plotting of it is kind of strange too, or the positioning of it, because the whole hockey team thing happens before he even gets the vision of Stilson.
Right.
And so it just seems like kind of a bizarre choice to have him, the movie actively avoids him having to wrestle with, the possibility of doing that and the possibility of getting something wrong or what have you. And another thing that it kind of disregards completely, and this is something that I was bummed about that wasn't included in the movie, was the whole idea of the blue filter, how his vision of it, the reveal that it's a child is an incredible moment in the book, and like we don't get any of that. We just get Martin Sheen just kind of being like, "Oh, hand me this kid," and it's kind of it didn't really work for me.
The whole concept of the dead zone, where he can only see certain things, and like, you know, he has a vision of this important moment, but some of the most important details of that moment are blocked off, or they're in the dead zone.
Yeah.
That seemed to come up once in the movie.
Yep.
Maybe. Granted, it maybe only comes up 3 or 4 times in the book.
Right. But it's still pretty, obviously it's pivotal to the story.
Right.
And in the movie, it felt more like a Peter Griffin kind of like, oh, they said it.
Yeah.
They said the name in the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, Johnny Smith was the only well-rounded character in the movie, really.
Yeah, me too.
Which that can happen in a kind of noirish style story like this. You know, that I can understand that, but if you have a good enough director and script and stuff, it's not that hard to, you know, have supporting characters who really. I mean, Dr. Wyzak in the movie is just like 100% a Deus Ex Machina. Like he's just so. Nothing about that character is unique, and Sarah is the love. Is that her name?
Yeah, Sarah. I had
100% a love interest.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like, and granted, this is '83, so depicting women in movies is like it's not like I'm not expecting it to be 2017. Progressive like filmmaking or anything,
right? But
also it's like she didn't really have like any agency in the movie. Like she was just like she dated this guy. They were in love, and then he went into a coma, and then he's out of a coma, and then like they don't like the movie does nothing to show her struggle with that. Like there's one scene, like the first scene where she sees him, and then she's like, "Don't look at me like that." And then like the next scene they're together, she's like, "Oh, okay, well my kid's asleep, let's bang."
Right.
And like in the book, that's such a beautiful moment because you feel like their connection is so great. Like King does such an incredible job of developing their relationship and those characters and the tragedy of those characters. But in the movie, it's just like, it's like they had bullet points of parts of the book that they needed to hit, and then they didn't write to it in an effective way.
Absolutely,
and that was a downer for me.
Yeah, and I appreciated in the book Johnny's relationship with his dad. I think that was something that added to his struggle as to what to do with his powers, you know, because he had a good relationship with his dad. And then, you know, like you mentioned earlier, his mother's religious mania was absent from the movie, and that was a shame. Yeah. So, yeah, I just... There were so many good supporting characters in the book. I wish they would have made more of an appearance in the movie. Me
too. And it's like, I remember... after we reviewed the book, I kind of was kind of ruminating on it and thinking like, yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot more after we discussed it. And then after seeing this movie and thinking about it, like I actually like the book a lot more because it's making me realize like, yes, there were tons of supporting characters in the book that really helped develop Johnny's main struggle throughout the book, while also being their own individual, well-rounded characters. Like, the whole thing with Sarah and her kind of... and granted, they can't do all this in a movie, but, like, their friendship in the face of his mother's death and Johnny's coma is, like, that's a beautiful friendship that blossoms. And they kind of become each other's, like, rock. Yes. And then... that leads to the amazing, like, kind of family scene in the book that is replicated in the movie, but you don't get enough of Herb, you don't get enough of Sarah, you don't get enough of the supporting characters. Yeah. And it's kind of, while that scene was effective in the movie, it just felt like it was really missing that extra, like, emotion to it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Yep. Yeah, so anything else that we should go over?
I don't think so. I mean, were you kind of disappointed that they didn't have more of a background on Johnny and Greg Stilson, you know, the whole part, like where Johnny kind of gets his powers when he slips on ice and hits his head.
Yeah.
Or the part, like one of the first scenes with Greg Stilson where he
kills the dog.
Beats a dog to death.
Yeah. I wish that, like, they could have just had, like, that could have opened the movie.
Yeah.
And, like, I would have been a lot more satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just, we didn't get any of that.
Right.
Like,
I kind of miss those.
Me too.
Those from the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
Especially Stilson, because that's just, man, because I think when I read the book, I had, you know, I got my dog 6 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, you son of a bitch.
Right.
Like, it just made me so, that's just such a despicable thing. That,
absolutely.
You know, it was amplified by that event in my life as well. So for that to be missing was just a bummer.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I would be interested in seeing them remake it. Like we talked about in the book review, I would love to see like a 3-season TV show. Each season is Johnny in each part of the book. So the first season is him getting his powers. Second season is the Castle Rock Strangler. Third season is him coming to terms with his obligation to do the unthinkable when he finds out Greg Stilson.
Right.
Yeah, I would love to see that done. But,
yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. But, you know, I think that'll do it for this review. Yeah, is there anything else you want to add, or should we close it out?
I think we can close it out. It wasn't an incredibly deep movie or anything that needs a ton of analysis, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that'll do it for us. Next week, we're going to have a review of The Gunslinger with me and our friend Tony. And then after that, we'll talk about Christine. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, get yourself a free T-shirt. Write us a review on iTunes, and then send us an email and be entered into it for a chance to win a shirt. And yeah, so we will eventually do some other like Palaver episodes. I did have an idea, Tiny, that we would do a Palaver episode with. We had a listener comment on Facebook with a long list of like kind of inaccuracies or anachronisms in the Dark Tower series. I
saw that, yeah.
Yeah, and then we also had an iTunes review that had a question that I feel like we should address. We should do like an extended potpourri, like a Tower Junkies equivalent of our Obsessive Viewer extended potpourri. That's just a general Palaver episode. Okay. So we should plan that in the weeks ahead. But anyway,
interesting.
That'll do it for this episode of Tower Junkies. Thank you guys so much for listening, and long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
Thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, a Dark Tower podcast presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at TowerJunkiesPod.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else podcasts are found. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can find ways to do that at TowerJunkiesPod.com/donate, or become a patron for Obsessive Viewer at Patreon.com/ObsessiveViewer for recurring donations with different reward tiers. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can contact us by emailing us at matt@obsessiveviewer.com, or by tweeting us at TowerJunkiesPod, or at ObsessiveViewer and at ObsessiveTiny. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod. For more podcast content from ObsessiveViewer.com, check out Anthology, my solo side project podcast where I'm reviewing The Twilight Zone as a first-time viewer and exploring other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology television shows. You can find Anthology at anthologypod.com and anywhere podcasts are found. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the app of your choice. Once again, thank you for listening to Tower Junkies, and we'll see you next time.